What's up, guys? Today, the Colorado ZR2 Duramax Diesel. After 2 years, what do I think? How's the truck been? I'll bring you guys up to speed. So for those of you that may not have seen my other videos, just to bring you guys up to speed, I have a 2017 Colorado ZR2 with the Duramax Diesel in it. I bought this truck, like I said, about 2 years ago at this point. I've got just over 22,000 miles on it, and I'm gonna, kind of give you guys my initial impressions and my just my thoughts on it. I'm sure somebody in the comments is gonna tell me that, hey, 22,000 miles isn't a good benchmark for reliability. Well, I'm here to tell you, you gotta count to 22 before you can count to 100, and I'm at 22 right now. It is what it is. So with that said, like I said, I own this thing 2 years. Looked at F-150s, looked at Silverados, I looked at all the half-ton stuff, and really for my needs, I really don't need a vehicle that large. This vehicle will do what I need to do with a pickup truck. So really what it came down to was this vehicle or another F-150. And after the issues I have with my last one, I really wasn't interested in buying another F-150. I've got a whole video on that. If you want details on that, I'll put a card up in the corner. So what do I think about the ZR2 after 2 years of ownership? Honestly, I'm pretty impressed. Just the ZR2 package itself, I think, is awesome. The truck rides great on the road. It has great street manners, and other than a little bit of tire noise that you guys may be able to hear, you can't tell that this is like, an off-road pickup truck. I've never driven a Raptor, but from all the stuff that I've seen and read about Raptors, is they're softly sprung, and when you go around corners and things, you can kind of feel that the truck has a bit of a compromise to it because it's such an off-road oriented truck. This thing has great street manners. But with that said, like if I start hitting potholes, or I take a set of railroad tracks at, slightly above the legal speed limit, it soaks it up like there's nothing even there practically. It's really, really impressive how good these shocks are in this thing. A couple letdowns as far as the ZR2 package. The biggest letdown for me has to be the interior, and it's not that I don't think it's a decent interior. It is a decent interior, but really, in all honesty, there's no difference in the interior in a ZR2 other than the seats and the sill panels, just inside the doors. You really can't tell this truck on the interior. You can't tell this truck from a Z71 or even an LT if you just get rid of the leather seats. It's virtually identical. So in that regard, just like I'm sure you guys have read online at this point, the interior, it could be better, but it's definitely functional. And other than how I wouldn't say it's Spartan, but it just doesn't feel like the highest trim level that you can get. A couple other little things that I don't really care for is the back window isn't powered. So unless you have somebody sitting in the back seat, the fact that the back window opens is about useless if you're driving around. I guess you could stick a 2x4 or something through it in a pinch if you really had to, but in all honesty, Toyota did a much better job, because I know at least on the Tundras, I'm not sure about the Tacomas, I know like the whole center of that window will, roll down. The other thing I'm not crazy about is the door pockets. The door pockets in the doors and the cup holders they have in the doors are absolute garbage. There's just not enough space in them. There's not enough thickness in the door to really put like a nice deep pocket in the door. And even the cup holders that are in the doors are mounted on a 45-degree angle. So you can't really have an open container of, pop or tea or, whatever. You have to have like a resealable 20-ounce bottle to be able to use the cup holders in the doors, because they're mounted on, like I said, like a 45. So the reason I'm sure most of you are here is probably the diesel. So I've had a couple issues with the engine itself and the powertrain. I detailed it in other videos, but just going over it real quick, I had a plugged DEF injector that was replaced under warranty, and then I also had an alternator failure. The alternator failures are kind of rare on these, but they do happen. The DEF injector was around 6,000 miles. The alternator failure was around 9, and knock on wood, I haven't had any problems since. I think one of the things that's kind of misunderstood about the diesel is everyone says that it's completely nutless, and it's not that fast. I will give you that. If you're rolling at 40 or 50 miles an hour and you put your foot flat to the floor, there is nothing there. The truck is only 180 horsepower, and it feels like it at 50 miles an hour. With that said, it makes 370 foot-pounds of torque. So Randy Popst, I don't know if you guys know who Randy Popst is, but Randy Popst is a race car driver. He's kind of featured on the Motor Trend channels and that sort of thing. He has a great explanation between the relationship between horsepower and torque, and it's this. Torque is what puts you back in the seat, and horsepower is what keeps you back in the seat. And this truck is the perfect analogy of that. This truck, pulling away from a stoplight, I can spin the tires, no problem. When I get up 30, 40 miles an hour, there's nothing there. Doesn't feel like I'm really accelerating much at all. So if you keep this engine under about 2,500 RPM, there's tons of power there. As soon as you wind it up about 2,500, 3,000, not really anybody home. All right, so let's be serious. The main reason that you would buy a diesel is going to be the towing and the fuel economy. Now, I don't do a lot of towing. That's part of the reason why I kind of gravitated toward the ZR2 is it only has a 5,000 pound tow rating, and quite frankly, I don't need much more than 5,000 pounds. I've towed some snowmobiles with it. I've had a bed full of firewood, split firewood, and it was literally stacked in the bed as high as I could get it without it falling out on the drive home. Handled it well, no issues whatsoever. As far as the fuel economy, this is one of the things that I think the government's fuel economy testing is way off. So this thing is rated at 22 miles a gallon on the highway, and I'm here to tell you that I've never gotten less than 22 miles a gallon with this truck, ever. If I get this truck out on the highway, I will see between 27 and 30 miles a gallon without any problem. If you can cruise about 60, 65 miles an hour, you will get 30 miles a gallon with a ZR2. I understand not a lot of people drive 60, 65 on the highway anymore, but believe me, between 26 and 30, it's normal. A lot of people kind of dismiss the diesel based on two factors. The cost of entry being the price of the option, which I think is like $3,500 or $4,000, and then the cost of maintenance. So this is kind of my thought process on those two things. So first of all, the cost of the option, yes, the diesel option is, like I said, $3,500 to $4,000. I'm not quite sure what it is at this point. But if you look at any diesel truck, I don't care who makes it, Ford, GM, Chrysler, does not matter, and you compare it to a gasoline version of the same year and the same mileage, I guarantee you the diesel truck is worth more money. That's just the nature of the beast. So my kind of thought process is, yes, I spend an extra $3,500, $4,000 on the truck, but there's a pretty good chance I'm going to get that back on the tail end when I go to sell the truck, and I can reap all the benefits from better fuel economy. Going into the cost of maintenance. So the first thing everybody wants to pick at when you talk about cost of maintenance is DEF. I'm here to tell you that this little Colorado will go 6,000 miles between DEF fill-ups. My dad also has a diesel Colorado. I know his will also go 6,000 miles between DEF fill-ups. And if you buy it at a truck stop, like most of you should, the truck stops in Ohio, it's about $2.75 a gallon. And it cost me about $9 to fill up the DEF tank every 6,000 miles. So let's be serious. If you can't afford a $9 DEF fill up, you can't afford a $25,000, let's say, used Colorado diesel at this point. I'm sorry, but you can't. As far as the other stuff related to the diesel maintenance, I do my own oil changes. Oil changes cost me 38 bucks. So that is Pennzoil Platinum Euro L 5W30. That is an AC Delco filter. The other stuff, fuel filter. Fuel filter is 32 bucks. I'm at 22,000 miles at this point. I still have 37% left on my fuel filters. So you could probably get close to 30,000 miles out of a set of fuel filters for, what, 32 bucks? So really, other than the fuel filters and the DEF, I mean, realistically, I don't think it's any more expensive than running a gasoline vehicle, especially when you consider the fact that you're getting a gasoline version of this truck will get maybe 20 miles a gallon. This will get 30. So what, what's that extra mileage worth to you? The other cost of maintenance is going to be the timing belt. So this vehicle has a timing belt on the front of the engine. This is not 3-liter Duramax that has it on the backside. The biggest part that you need to remove to change this timing belt is the radiator fan. So not really a big deal to change the timing belt in one of these. Now, with that said, it's due at 100,000 miles, and quite frankly, I haven't even looked into the cost of replacing the timing belt. More than likely, I'm going to try and do it myself. So as far as the cost of the special tools and the components, I'm really not even sure what they cost at this point. I mean, the cost of the special tools may cost me more than the labor. At that point, I may just have it done somewhere else. But at any rate, yes, you do need to change the timing belt at 100,000 miles. A lot of the guys that own the V6 version of the Colorado, kind of make that argument that, oh, you got to change the timing belt. Well, if you guys ever looked at the timing setup on a 3.6 GM V6, I'd much rather change the timing belt than deal with that timing setup. The early versions of that engine had tons and tons of timing chain problems, and I don't know that they've all been sorted out at this point. I can't lay claim to that. The other issue that you have with the V6 Colorado is the 8-speed garbage transmission that they put in those. For those of you that aren't aware, there's actually a class action lawsuit filed on behalf of owners of those transmissions because they have what's called shudder issues, where you're going 50, 60 miles an hour and the vehicle going down the road is actually just shuddering as it goes down the road from the torque converter clutch. GM has they have like a revised fluid they put in there, and they revise transmission calibrations and all this stuff, and it may work, it may not. But so yes, you could say that this is unreliable and you're going to have problems with the diesel, and you're going to have problems with the after treatment systems, and you know what, that's fine. But when you look at a GM 3.6 V6 and the 8-speed transmission that they put in the gasoline version of the Colorado, they're not exactly bulletproof either. So, kind of pick your poison, if you will. As far as the reliability of one of these trucks, I'm going to tell you right now, your biggest issue that you're going to have is going to be the exhaust emissions components, whether it's sensors or the DEF pump or the DEF heater, because DEF freezes at about 11 degrees. So if it's colder than 11 degrees outside, there's an actual heater in the tank that heats up the DEF to basically keep it from freezing. So I know guys up in northern Canada have big problems with this, with the DEF freezing up. Me being in Ohio and this truck stored in a garage inside, not a huge deal. But with that said, if I lived in a cold climate, I don't know that I would get the diesel for that reason. Every winter that I've had this truck, I always check, because the DEF heater is in the assembly with the DEF pump, and every single winter that DEF pump goes on national back order through GM every single year because they go bad. So if you live in a warmer climate, I'm going to say you're going to have less issues with the exhaust emissions components than what you would if you live in a colder climate. But then again, if the truck sits inside, you might not have that big of a deal. All right, guys, so For those of you that aren't aware, probably haven't seen him. He's only been in one other video, but this is my dad.
How you doing?
My dad owns...
I don't normally wear glasses.
He's old, he can't see. My dad has basically the exact same truck. Dad, what do you have?
I have a 2017 Z71 model.
With?
An extended bed.
And?
A diesel.
Exactly. So, Dad, what problems have you had, if anything? Do you like driving it? Do you hate it? What do you think of it?
It's very good to drive. The mileage is great. It hauls whatever I want to haul. I was telling Andrew we had hauled 255 bags, 80-pound bags of concrete. It took over 25 bags each trip. Never had a problem. Worked out great. Hauls a trailer, no problem. Single axle, but I'll have 3,000 pounds in it, and it's no issue at all. Does everything I want it to do as far as the motor and even the size of the bed. It's 6'2", which is longer than Andrew's, and I mean it's pretty good length. It's handy, and it fits in my garage. Being that it's a little narrow, it's no big deal. It's only me and my wife anymore, and we don't have any problems with size. Probably the negatives is the driver and passenger seat just need more cushion.
He doesn't have leather. I have leather in this, and it seems like when you get the leather interior, they put more padding in the seats. Just going from
it was the ZR2 package.
No, you can get a Z71 with leather, but they're pretty rare actually. They're kind of a pain in the ass to find, and with a diesel, it's next to impossible. So,
well, it where your butt sits, it's kind of flat, and there's just not enough cushion in it. It's probably the only negative. So overall, it's an A+. I just like the few little nitpick things. I imagine you get some aftermarket seat covers. I was kind of looking at those, and I didn't see anything that was comparable to what Andrew had in his truck. But besides that, it's been running great. That's about it.
So yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to you either get a good one or you either get a bad one. I think with one of these trucks, I think the issue that you're going to have is probably going to be emission system related more than likely. The issues with these things really aren't huge. I mean, obviously there's emissions problems with them, but that's kind of common between all the diesels. It really doesn't matter what brand you're buying. You know, you're going to have a DEF injector go bad, or a particulate matter sensor go bad, or you know, something like that. But it's just kind of the dice that you're going to roll if you're going to go the diesel route. But on the other hand, what's your highest mileage that you've had total?
I've gotten up to 36 miles a gallon, 39 miles a gallon. If I'm following behind trucks, I don't have a problem with the mileage. Probably the only had 2 recalls for the DEF just to reset the computer, put it to new standards, but it's really not an issue. It's been running good as far as that goes. And
yeah, I think colder climates are harder on that sort of stuff than, I mean, we're in northern Ohio, and I mean, it gets cold in like January, February, but it doesn't get brutal cold like it does up in Canada. And if you leave the truck outside, you're probably going to have more issues than what we do parking in a garage in Ohio.
And I look at that, and that was probably one of my biggest worries when I went this route, because it'd be sitting out at work for 8 hours. And I mean, it could be down -10 during the day, and I've never had an issue when it's been sitting out. I mean, I've had it sit out, and I'm really surprised on that. With that smaller engine and only the one battery, I think they put a good battery in it. You don't have issues.
Right. So there you have it, guys. That's my dad's opinion. But as always, guys, if you guys like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content,
subscribe.
There you go.
See ya.
Talk to you later.